Hey guys, and welcome to the Fish Room. I'm Rachel O'Leary, and today we're going to talk about filtration. Now, I've shown you guys in the past the sponge filters that I use in the Fish Room, as well as my corner Manton filter and FX5 on the 150. But I've never shown you how I filter Captain Cranky Pants tank. Now, there are different considerations when you're choosing filtration for big, messy eaters. And Captain is no exception there. He and Whiskey are very messy eaters, as I've shown you in past videos. It's very important when you have large predatory fish that you have adequate filtration, especially with something like an Oscar, as they're prone to hole in the head. Now, you can choose to use a large canister, you can choose to use a sump, you can choose to use any number of filtrations. But what I chose for Captain Cranky Pants and Whiskey is what's called a tower filter or a trickle filter. Often these are used within a sump, but I chose to mount it above the aquarium simply for space's sake and uniformity in my fish room. So we're going to take a look at his filter, and we'll talk a little bit about the pros and cons of that choice. Now, they can be a bit expensive, usually a few $100s, and they're most appropriate for large aquariums. But you can also look on someone like Joey's channel, The King of DIY, which I'll link to below, in order to find out how to make your own. It's really not that difficult, and it's really inexpensive. However, I had gotten this filter as part of the deal with buying my tropical gar, so I had it on hand and set it up, I guess about 10 years ago now, and it's done pretty well. Now, the filter I use on Captain's Aquarium is called a trickle or a tower filter, or even a wet-dry filter. And it utilizes a few different forms of media in order to filter the aquarium. Most often these are put in sumps below the aquarium, and you'd use an overflow box in order to supply water, and then a return pump to return water to the aquarium. However, I chose to put the return pump in Captain's Aquarium and mount the wet-dry filter above. Now, the way these filters work is that they draw water from the aquarium, which goes through either a spray bar or what's called a distribution plate, and it's basically, I'll show you, but it's basically a plate with a bunch of holes drilled in it that allows water to trickle through the media that is in the submerged portion or the tower portion of our filter. Now, this provides a very oxygen-rich environment for the beneficial bacteria to grow and do its work of converting ammonia and nitrite to nitrate. Now, you can use all different kinds of medias in your trickle filters. I have an obscene quantity of bio balls at my house, so I use those. Ceramic media, lava rock, pumice stone. There's any number of things that you could use as your biological media. From there, the water drains down into a sump portion, and this is where I put submerged filter media. Now, I've chosen to use some of the Sarah filter media simply because I had it on hand. In the past, I've put other things like ceramic rings or foam or really, again, anything you'd like in there. And that's just a second stage of filtration to catch any particles or detritus that makes it through the bioballs. The water is then returned to the aquarium, and that's your filter. Now, I should mention as well that I also have a pre-filter at the very top of the tower, and that collects the initial clumps of debris, dirt, detritus, uneaten food, etc. Now, this filtration is really useful, especially for larger aquariums or for really messy fish. Most often you see these on aquariums that are over 100 gallons. Now, Captain and Whiskey share a 75-gallon, but because they're both so messy, I opted to go for this filtration. The nice thing about them is that they require very little maintenance. Things like canisters with big messy eaters need really constant attention, otherwise there is a massive buildup of nitrates in your aquarium. I can do water changes from my sump as part of my normal maintenance. I'll simply vacuum out all the detritus, rinse the pre-filter, and I'm good to go. And maybe once a month I have to rinse out the submerged portion of the media, simply to remove debris. Now, these filters are really popular with goldfish keepers because goldfish are known to be quite messy as well. One of the things I really like about these filters is that they're relatively quiet, especially in comparison to my sponge filtration. If I keep the water line all the way up, it's basically silent except for a very small trickling sound. For me, it was really useful in my fish room because I could mount it above the aquarium. It was out of the way, it's easy to maintain, and it doesn't take a whole lot of work. Now, it does have a few drawbacks, one of which is that it's difficult to use any chemical filtration adequately with this kind of filter. One interesting thing that you can do as well is you can grow immersed plants in the filter container, and I have pothos growing in that, and that just helps with some more of the nutrient uptake in the aquarium. Now, I filter the big boys in a completely different manner, and we'll look at that in a future video. Let me know below if you're interested in learning more about my filtration choices around the fish room based on the stocking density, the size of the aquarium, as well as my applications for running a large fish room. As always, thank you for your continued support, and let me know below if you have any comments, suggestions, or questions. Make sure you're subscribed and you have that notification bell on because I'm going to start moving fish in from outside this week, and I can't wait for you guys to see all the fry that I've gotten. Heavy-duty filtration does not replace the need for water changes, and because of how messy these two fish are, I do water changes quite frequently in this aquarium, usually every couple of days, to vacuum the substrate and to make sure that I've removed the accumulated detritus from my filter. It's easy to just rinse out the pre-filter and clean things up in between my main water changes.